They gave my room to a teenager with an iPad addiction, so I took the whole damn house. Yep, they thought I was just a harmless old man with a cane and a pension. But what they didn't know, I had the deed, a plan, and decades of silent observation. When family turns greedy, Grandpa turns savage. This isn't just revenge, it's a full-blown takeover with wills, lawyers, and lease agreements. Think you're too old to clap back? Think again. Watch how I went from disrespected to unstoppable. You'll cheer, gasp, and maybe even call your grandpa after this one. They say home is where the heart is. Well, mine used to be tucked neatly into the back room on the second floor of the house I built with my own 2 hands, 42 years of mortgage payments and 7 layers of paint deep. I had envisioned spending the last stretch of my life there, surrounded by family, memories, and maybe a good book or 2. Instead, I came back from the rehab center after a mild stroke to find my room stripped bare and repurposed into my teenage grandson's content studio. That's right, ring lights, beanbags, and a large neon sign that read, "Grind never stops." Apparently, while I was away learning how to walk without wobbling, my daughter and son-in-law decided that my recovery would be better in the den, next to the laundry machines. No door, no windows. Just the smell of detergent and the whir of spin cycles to lull me to sleep. At first, I smiled, nodded, thanked them for making space. But inside, I was boiling, and I knew right then they had no idea who they were messing with. You want to take my room? Fine. I'll take the whole damn house. You're being dramatic, Dad, my daughter Lisa said, stirring almond milk into her coffee like she was on a talk show set. The den is temporary. Temporary like my last birthday dinner? I said, because that was postponed to never. Her husband, Ron, looked up from his phone just long enough to chime in. It's not about the room, it's about adjusting to the new dynamics. New dynamics? I asked, pretending to scratch my head. So the new dynamic is I'm a houseplant now? They didn't laugh. I looked around the table at my 2 grandkids, Ava, 14, busy Snapchatting her cereal, and Mason, 17, editing a YouTube video titled Kicking Grandpa Out. I made a mental note to watch that later. Or maybe copyright claim it. That's when I knew. This wasn't miscommunication. This was a quiet mutiny. Dinner that night was a masterpiece of fake civility. Lisa had made vegan lasagna because Ron was trying dairy-free, and I was given a side bowl of steamed peas because, apparently, dentures and noodles don't mix. I chewed slowly, observing everyone like a general surveying enemy troops. Ava asked if I could be a little quieter with the TV during her Zoom cheerleading practices. Mason wanted to use my car just for senior pictures, promise. I smiled through it all, like a good old man. But every smile added a notch to my mental revenge board. And when I got up to fetch more water, I overheard Ron mutter to Lisa, "If he keeps pushing, we'll look into assisted living again." That was the moment. The switch. You want to play hardball, Ron? Good. I taught hardball. I invented it. The next morning, I pretended to nap in the den. Not hard, considering there's no insulation between me and the kitchen. Lisa, I just feel bad. But he's difficult. Ron, he's passive-aggressive. And did you see the way he stared at me when I parked in his spot? Lisa, it's his driveway. Ron, not legally. The deed's in our name now, remember? Oh, now that was interesting. I got up, poured myself cold coffee, and shuffled back down to the basement, where I keep my files. Turns out, the deed wasn't in their name. Not completely. There was a little clause they'd forgotten, a clause I remembered writing in with my old lawyer buddy, Frank. Any transfer of ownership is conditional upon the original owner's permanent residence elsewhere. Well, guess who was back and very much breathing? I climbed up into the attic that night, flashlight in one hand, thermos in the other. There, tucked inside a dusty banker's box marked 1992 taxes, was the manila envelope I needed. Inside, the original deed. The clause. A notarized letter. All still valid. You see, They thought because they were managing the bills and I was recovering in rehab, they could make changes. But that clause. It meant that the moment I returned home, any transfer attempt became null. They never finished the process. They thought they had time. I smiled, creaking back down the attic stairs. Not only was I home, I was home, legally. And now I had a paper trail to burn their little influencer dreams to ash. I didn't rush. No. Revenge is best served slow, with a side of polite sarcasm. Lisa, I said the next morning, I'd like to review the utilities with you. You know, since I still co-own the house. Her face twitched. Of course, Dad. But Ron handles most of that now. Ron's face, across the room, drained color. Great, I said, opening my folder with the paperwork. We'll set a meeting. I began changing the Wi-Fi password. Cancelled their Netflix. I unsubscribed them from the food box deliveries they thought were mysteriously delayed. I smiled sweetly whenever they complained. Must be a system error, I'd say. You know how these tech things go. One afternoon, while the house was empty, I made a visit to the bank. Sat down with a notary. Updated the title, reinstating my majority ownership thanks to that forgotten clause. Legally filed. Quietly executed. Then I called my old pal Frank the lawyer. We updated my will. Spoiler alert, no influencers were included. And I made one more phone call to a property management company I trusted. Just hypothetical, I said. But what would be the steps to start a formal eviction of adult children? The man chuckled. You'd be surprised how often we get that call. I called a family meeting that Sunday. Everyone gathered in the living room, distracted and annoyed. I have some updates, I said. First, the house is not yours. Never was. You assumed. You forgot the clause. I didn't. Ron blinked. Lisa stared. Ava said, Wait, are we being pranked? Nope, I said. And second, I've updated my will. Nothing goes to anyone living here rent-free and disrespectfully. Mason actually dropped his phone. Ron stood up. You can't do this. I already did. That week, I started small. I locked the garage. Changed the TV parental controls. I took back my favorite recliner and dared anyone to move it. Ron complained about parking. I parked both our trash bins in his spot. Lisa tried to guilt-trip me over dinner. I began cooking my own meals and labeled everything in the fridge, not yours. I brought in my buddy Frank for a friendly sit-down. He brought documentation. The tension could be sliced with a butter knife. For my 78th birthday, they planned nothing. So I planned a party, with guests from my side, not theirs. Old neighbors, poker buddies, even my barber. They showed up to balloons, jazz music, and a banner that read, Welcome home, legal owner. I made a speech. Thank you all for coming. It's great to be back. This house has always been mine. Now it's official again. And for those wondering, yes, I'll be charging rent. Dead silence from Lisa, Ron, Ava, and Mason. Cheers from the rest. Lisa confronted me that night. Yelled. Cried. Guilt-tripped. I needed help, Dad. I thought you'd just be okay letting us run things for a while. Run things? I asked. You mean take everything and treat me like an afterthought? Ron tried legal threats. I handed him a copy of the notarized deed. Try again, champ. But then, something unexpected happened. Ava, teenage, moody, TikTok dancing Ava, knocked on my door. I think what they did was messed up, she said. Also, I saw Mason's video. He made fun of you. I reported it. She handed me her phone. And I want to help with the house. By now, the house didn't feel like a home. It felt like a battlefield with carpeting. And I was the general. After the rent bomb and the not-so-subtle suggestion that people start pulling their weight, things shifted. Suddenly, my presence wasn't just tolerated, it was resented. They tried smiles, but they cracked at the corners. They offered coffee, but now it came lukewarm. Perfect. I preferred it that way. It was time to begin the next phase of my plan, room by room, reclaiming my territory. First target. My original room. The one they gave away to Jake, the influencer grandson who spent more time streaming shirtless in front of a ring light than applying to jobs. I waited until he was away at some TikTok networking thing in LA. Apparently, brand deals don't sign themselves, and I made my move. I boxed his things neatly, labeled everything with a smiley face, and had it all placed in the garage. Then I moved in. When Jake returned 2 days later and found me sitting in my armchair, sipping tea, the scream he let out could have cracked windows. "You can't just take this room," he shouted. "Oh, I didn't take it," I said calmly. "I'm reclaiming it. You've been officially evicted by the one who owns the deed. Check the folder in the living room, under Grandpa's Petty Vengeance." He stomped away, mumbling something about ageism in reverse. Next, the guest room. You see, my lovely daughter-in-law, Pam, had taken that room and transformed it into her crafting headquarters. It was a crime scene of glitter, yarn, and passive-aggressive Etsy quotes framed on the wall. But that room had a lock. And I had the spare key. One night, while she was at her book club, more wine than books, from what I could gather, I went in and packed everything up with more care than TSA agents show to checked luggage. I left a note. "Craft dreams are valid. Just not in this room." To soften the blow, I even ordered her a storage shed, a pink one, shaped like a cottage. Very Pinterest. With every room I reclaimed, the temperature in the house dropped. I wasn't being mean. I was being fair. I was taking back space, dignity, and maybe just a little revenge. Even the dog switched alliances. He started sleeping at my feet. And the family. They were finally realizing something. This wasn't just about a room. It was about respect. And I was done living like I didn't deserve any. If you've never seen a senior citizen do passive-aggressive warfare with curtain rods and HOA bylaws, buckle up. I started by replacing the drapes in the guest bedroom. Not asking. Not telling. Just did it. Why? Because I felt like it. My house, remember? Claire caught me mid-hammer, holding the new blackout curtains I'd bought online. "What are you doing?" "Blocking out the entitlement. Sunlight seems to carry it in," I deadpanned. She huffed. "That's supposed to be Jeremy's study. Jeremy's 28 and plays Minecraft for 9 hours a day. It's time his study got converted into an actual room with curtains." Meanwhile, I went room by room, switching light bulbs, moving furniture, and removing their temporary stuff. I posted signs that read, "This room is no longer available for squatters." They said nothing to my face, but I heard the whispers. "He's losing it. He's having a late-life crisis. He's gonna croak and leave this dump to a cat shelter." Wrong, and absolutely not. I was more lucid than ever, and I had plans. One night, as the house slept, I slipped into the garage, found the old moving boxes they never unpacked, marked with scribbles like, "Don't touch," and Jeremy's tech. I touched. I moved all of them into the attic. Every single one. Labeled them lost and found, claimed by next full moon. The next morning, screams, curses, and a standoff over the breakfast counter. "I want to talk to a lawyer," Claire said, red in the face. "Good idea. I can recommend 3. They helped me update the deed," I replied, sipping my coffee. "Wait, update the deed?" That was when I dropped the stack of papers on the counter. Copies of my new will, updated house rules, and a house sharing contract that outlined everyone's rent, rules, and consequences. They were stunned. "Since we're all living together like roomies," I said, "we may as well have a lease agreement. You know, for harmony." Jeremy said, "You can't be serious." "I'm deadly serious. And I'm old. Those are two kinds of serious you shouldn't mess with. Chaos erupted. Doors slammed. Claire threatened to call Aunt Diane. Jeremy said he'd move out, which was the most hopeful sentence I'd heard since Reagan was in office. By the end of the day, I'd heard not one apology, but I'd seen something better. Fear. They knew I wasn't bluffing. And I was just getting started. They thought I was bluffing. That the old man wouldn't dare change the locks. That even if I did, I'd forget where I put the keys. Well, surprise. On Monday morning, every lock in the house had a fresh face, digital, fingerprint-enabled, and completely inaccessible to anyone without my say-so. I sat on the porch sipping my tea, watching the chaos unfold. Sarah and Mike pounded on the door like teenagers locked out past curfew. Ava stood behind them, embarrassed. I opened the door just wide enough to slide out a piece of paper. Your tenancy is being re-evaluated. All guests must now submit a formal request. Attach character references. Dad, you're being insane. Sarah yelled. And you were being entitled. Now we're even. That night, Ava came to the back porch alone. She didn't knock, just stood there awkwardly. Grandpa, I'm sorry. Those words hit harder than anything the others had said. She sat beside me quietly, handing me her tablet. On it was a draft of her college admissions essay, a story about me. About how I was the only one who ever made her feel heard, safe, respected. I didn't know what they did to your room until it was too late, she whispered. I wanted to fix it. That night, we made a pact, her loyalty for my mentorship. I gave her back her old room. And in return, she became my inside voice, my spy, my second set of eyes. Mike thought he could embarrass me online. He recorded a TikTok where he made fun of my boomer boundaries, calling me a cranky squatter. The video got views. Thousands. But he forgot one thing. I have tech skills too. Within 24 hours, I had uploaded a video of my own, a calm, composed breakdown of what had really happened. With documents, receipts, and a smile that said, "Try me." That video went viral. And suddenly, strangers were calling me a hero. Hashtags like #GrandpaRevenge and #BoomerBoss trended. People offered to buy me coffee. A lawyer emailed me and offered free legal support, just for the joy of sticking it to entitlement. Sarah lost it. She threw plates, slammed doors, screamed about how ungrateful I was after she took me in. You took my room, my peace, my dignity, I said, standing tall. This house was built by these hands. You think I need to be grateful for being allowed to sleep in a hallway? She screamed, cried, cursed. I simply handed her a printed notice, 1 week to vacate the premises unless she agreed to a rent contract, household duties, and respect. You can't kick me out, she shouted. Watch me, I said. She tried. Oh, she tried. Filed a claim that I was mentally unfit, hoping to get guardianship and lock me in a care facility. But I was ready. My new lawyer friend represented me pro bono. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, reviewed the evidence, the video, the documents, the family behavior. Verdict. The plaintiff is not only of sound mind, but frankly, seems to be the only adult in this entire scenario. Dismissed. As we left the courtroom, Mike looked like a child grounded after trying to fake a report card. 3 months later, the house was mine again, not just legally, but spiritually. I hosted a housewarming for one party, inviting the neighbors, my lawyer, and Ava's friends. I redecorated the living room with jazz records, photos of my late wife, and a recliner that actually supported my back. There was laughter, peace, even a barbecue grill going. When Sarah drove by slowly, she saw balloons and music, and realized she wasn't the center of anyone's world anymore. Ava moved into the guest room for the summer before college. Mike and Sarah haven't spoken to me since the court day. Do I miss them? I miss the version of them that used to love me, but not who they've become. As for me, I now sleep in a memory foam bed in a room that smells like cedar and respect. I make my own coffee, I control my own locks, and I never let anyone decide where I belong again. And if you're watching this, thinking you're too old to stand up for yourself, let me tell you something. They gave away my room, so I took back my whole damn house. Like, share, and subscribe, because revenge, my friend, has no expiration date.